Yeah, KJ Lacey, he's committed to Texas currently. On the on-3 industry, he's the quarterback 10, 88th overall. He's around 5'11", 6 foot, 175, 180 area. He goes to Saraland High School in Alabama. They are the fourth-ranked team in the state with a 56 team power ranking and a 28th strength of schedule. He's a two-sport athlete. Played a little basketball at his previous high school, Daphne, and he was really productive. He was throwing to five-star Ryan Williams, that is enrolled at Alabama, and then a four-star Dylan Alfred. But he's like another one of these smallish point guardy types that can get the ball out quick, that can bounce around and evade the pass rush, and fairly accurate, pretty clean mechanics. He's got a private quarterback coach and all that. Plays tons of 7v7. Very experienced player. Started as a freshman at Daphne and then transferred, and has started 2 full seasons at Saraland. So he's got 821 career times, which is good. So he's plenty experienced. He's got a pretty good arm, 51, 53 area. So like average arm. He can throw at 55 yards. So it's pretty good for college, college purposes. I like how he's like spry and he can make plays outside the pocket. Although he's not a runner, he kind of like scrambles to extend plays and throw and make passes. So it's like for his career, I think he's got 42 career rushing yards. So he's not a dual threat guy. I think he's kind of like a worse version of Julian Lewis a little bit. That's kind of like what I thought of. Maybe this is like the new age quarterback, and I'm just like kind of a boomer, and I'm like kind of behind the 8 ball on these types of guys, like kind of like a Noah Fafita. These super small guys that kind of distribute really well and can move around. They're not necessarily dual threats, but the one thing I notice with a lot of these small guys is it seems like they have to move quite a bit to drive the ball outside the numbers and stuff, to like make those tough NFL throws. It's like they really have to like be moving and creating some inertia and getting their body into it, which I don't know, that it doesn't seem like a quality that'll really translate to the NFL as far as being able to distribute from you got to be able to distribute from the pocket. I feel like long term, I mean, that's just going to have to be something you can do. And I think these guys, kind of little jackrabbit guys running around making throws, like you got to be pretty special to do that, to translate. Like he's not Kyler Murray, he's not Caleb Williams. So I think I think he'll be a pretty good college quarterback. As far as fantasy, he's not dual threat. So I know, I don't think you guys will be excited as far as that goes, but I think he's good enough to start in college. I don't really see an NFL guy personally.
Yeah, I think it'll be hard to really get excited about an NFL guy who's under 6 feet, 180 pounds, and doesn't run. I mean, the thing that I think a lot of these guys who are smaller have in common is they can skirt around and run a little bit. Matt, what do you think about KJ Lacey? And then I will close this out.
Yeah, I would pretty much echo all of that. He has the stature and the skill set to be a really good college quarterback. Ultimately, the NFL is not going to like it. I do have concerns about him going to Texas because he's kind of the profile where I think they'll probably get somebody higher rated than him that they see as like this NFL prospect. They'll ultimately get the job over him. I feel like that's kind of just inevitable with his type unless he somehow nails down into a game manager role. But either way, I'd like to see him flip to maybe a lower P5 or something like that, so he can actually get a good chance to start for a few years in college, and then maybe get his name up there to hopefully draw some draft capital. But at the moment, it's just hard to project that. I do think he's a good passer, though. I mean, he's aggressive. He trusts his receivers. He does make some anticipatory throws. So there is a lot to like about him as a passer, just the size, the athleticism, the lack of mobility in general. It's definitely going to hold him down really hard.
Well, yeah, and I think it was David mentioned Noah Fafita, which is a nice physical stature comp. Although Fafita even has 15 pounds on Lacey, although Lacey still has some time to put on weight. But I think Fafita doesn't run. He had negative 33 rushing yards last year, so it can certainly happen where these guys are very pinpoint accurate. And KJ Lacey has 70% completion. That's great. And 70% completion and 10.9 yards per attempt. That's like really, really good. I mean, the efficiency is very much there. Production is very much there. Playing on a very good team in Alabama. I mean, Saralin's pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, I think these guys are hard to get excited about from fantasy because they can't necessarily create points. They're going to need to rely on having a good scheme. They're going to need to rely on 40 passing attempts a game. They're going to need to rely on game scripts to keep them throwing rather than someone who can just create points. But I mean, it's a broken record at this point, but it really does matter to give some ground game. I mean, you just have to have 45 attempts, 50 attempts a game to be a pure passer and score with the best of them in college fantasy football, at least. And then I agree, the NFL upside feels almost nil, to be honest. So I always like to kind of say, look, if they're Drew Brees situation, because Drew Brees was like that. I mean, he wasn't very mobile, and he was 6 feet, kind of small, and he just distributed the ball at an incredibly high volume and put up tons of points. But that was a perfect scenario for him in college and in the pros. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm not jazzed about KJ Lacey, and that's just the kind of player I'm never going to really prioritize. Not to say he can't have a good career, but I'm not sure I'm going to prioritize him in fantasy drafts. And I guess when he arrives at Texas, assuming he still shows up there, Manning will be in his 3rd year. I know they had a player last year that we didn't necessarily love. So the depth chart by the time he shows up could be opening up, but we'll see if he gets recruited over or transferred over or whatever. I mean, I think there's a long way to go at that point, and he's not a guy I'm going to be banking on, really grabbing the job and taking it with both hands.